Hi, this is Dan Eisenberg for another episode of Scale Up Podcasts. Scale Up Podcast is an audio-only podcast series to give you as much information and as many examples as we can bring to you of interesting companies in all sectors, all parts of the world that are beyond the initial stage of product market fit, figuring out who they are, but they're in the stage of actually growing their revenues and their profits and their cash flows way beyond the startup phase. So I'm fortunate and in many ways to have with me here Omri Geller, who's the company that he founded and co-founded is called Run AI. It's now not his company anymore. It was acquired by Nvidia. We'll get to that in a little while. But until that time, he had owned a company with two other partners and investors. I have to disclose that I was one of the very early investors, and very happily so, in Run AI. So this is Omri Geller, who's I don't know what your title is today, but you were the CEO of Run AI. What is your title today, Omri?
So today I'm the VP and VP at Nvidia, focusing on Run AI, continuing and scaling the Run AI business.
Great. Well, we're not going to talk too much about Nvidia today. We're going to talk about the early years of Run AI. And by the way, this is it's out there in the public domain. It was acquired by Nvidia. People are saying, not to be confirmed or denied, it was acquired for $700 million. And it was founded in 2018. So that happened very quickly. So I'm very interested in go back. First of all, tell us, elevator pitch, who is Omri Geller, first of all?
Sure. Thanks, Dan, for inviting me. So Omri Geller, 36 years old, live in Tel Aviv, Israel. Founded Run AI in 2018 with my partners from Tel Aviv University. We were a team that conducted research together. Ronen Dar did his PhD. I did my master's under the supervision of Professor Meir Feder. Three of us started Run AI. Who am I in very short? So I love technology. I love to build stuff. And I'm getting excited really easily from new things, and specifically around the innovations around AI, which led me also to starting a business in that field.
That's great. And I would say that prior to studying, or part of his studies, Omri worked in the government, in security. I think it's fair to say. I don't think we can go into it any more detail than that. Involved with technology teams.
Correct.
And I think that's relevant. So now give us the layperson's version of who is and what is Run AI.
Yeah, so as mentioned, we founded Run AI in 2018. We founded Run AI with a very clear vision that AI is going to be anywhere, and AI models are going to consume a lot of computational power, specifically from GPUs, which are dedicated processors for AI computations. And our vision was that the hardware ecosystem is going to completely transition into a new world of data centers to support the compute requirements of AI workloads. And we thought that if the hardware space is going to be a new hardware space, new processors, new data centers, then there is an opportunity to build a new software layer that would know how to consume the new compute resources, utilize them, and help organizations to easily take advantage of that compute and build and deploy AI models. So to some extent, Run AI is the new operating system that knows how to efficiently run AI applications on AI hardware. And we started very early when it was very hard to find organizations that actually did AI. It was mainly in the academy back, 7-8 years ago. The ecosystem today is completely different. Every organization is doing AI, and every organization that deploys hardware to build AI models need a software like Run AI to be able to actually use efficiently those GPUs.
So now we're sitting here in April 2025 and say, well, AI. I mean, everyone knows AI is everywhere, right?
Yes.
But 7 years ago, it wasn't that easy to talk to organizations, and you went through a number of iterations. First of all, in uh, in trying to provide this quote unquote operating system to customers as the market was evolving or revolutionizing, I think it's fair to say. Tell us a little bit about this interplay between having an idea of what the product is, having the market sort of shifting under your feet. And I don't know if that was an opportunity or a problem or both. How did you deal with that uncertainty?
Yeah, it's a great question because really, I remember that when we started, we had to look very. We were searching constantly for potential customers because there were handful of companies that actually did AI, and many organizations were talking about building AI and innovating with AI, but nobody actually, not nobody, but very limited amount of organizations actually did invest in the building AI models. So
There's a chance, sorry to interrupt, but there's a chance that this sort of could have just disappeared because there were 10 customers in the world and you didn't get the product going
exactly,
enough.
exactly.
So what happened? I mean, was it
And
luck or foresight or all the above?
yeah. So actually, I mean, we had a different idea in the beginning. The vision was there to create a software that helps to actually use the AI hardware efficiently. However, the initial technical solution that we provided was very close to our nature in the academia, and we have built technology that helps to accelerate the process of training AI models, because it could take weeks and months to train a model. And we thought, okay, let's build an algorithm that knows how to take one one AI model and distribute it across different processors to accelerate the process. And the reason that we started to build that product was that was the interesting stuff back then.
For the 6 customers.
Yes, with the 6 customers that we could have spoken with, right?
So I'm curious. So was it just you had this vision and you knew it would change, or your investors said, you know what, we're going to give you enough runway to figure this out? I mean, again, I'm just struck by the possibility that this could have.
Yeah, the second. So I'll give you exactly what happened. So 2018, we raised the seed $3 million. We were able to bring a few customers that were interested in acceleration of the training. And then we raised another $10 million. And then we exited stealth. When we exited stealth, it was 2019, approximately a year after we founded the company. And back then, the market was in a stage that obviously companies were funded, but it wasn't overloaded. So we got really good coverage globally for our exit of stealth mode. And we had.
So you're like the best and the brightest of this very narrow field for now, right?
Exactly. And it helped create some buzz around Run AI, and we had conversations with another, let's say, 30 potential customers, and those customers were also abroad. We founded the company in Israel, but when we spoke to US-based customers, then we started to hear different things, and then we understood that we need to change.
Give you an example of the different things that you were hearing from these customers who are not now just universities or research institutes. These are corporations.
Correct, exactly. So first of all, we started to think how a team works together on infrastructure versus a single researcher. Okay, like the type of problems that they guided us to solve or asked us to solve is how an organization can make sure that all the team members can take advantage of the compute resources, whereas in the academia, it's many times, researcher gets a grant, they own what they own, and they have different problems. There is no focus on building IT or strong IT processes, secured IT processes, etc. in academia versus enterprises that are always looking on scale and
So what?
how they can build for the future.
So what perhaps was defined as a technological problem initially, added on the layer, this is also an organizational problem.
Correct. Exactly. And that led us also to understanding how to engineer the product, because we learned that enterprises would not easily add a platform to their IT systems unless it is very well integrated into existing software platforms. And therefore, we had to build a product in a way that is extremely integrable versus a standalone that has, all that is needed in order to deploy the product.
What do you mean by integral? Do you mean integrate into the other processes in the organization?
So integrate into the platforms. We understood that many enterprises are deploying Kubernetes, for example, and our software, to some extent, was responsible for resource management and did what Kubernetes did. But the enterprises told us, listen, we're not going to change Kubernetes for you. If you want to work with us, make Kubernetes good for AI and GPUs. So we redesigned the product in a way that is now integrable into the ecosystem, the IT ecosystem of the enterprise.
And this whole process of understanding what this enterprise product looked like took approximately how long?
From the moment we had this enlightenment, let's say, it was like, second half of 2019, to the first customer that actually enjoyed the product, I would say approximately a year.
Okay, that's a long time. And so, in part, the first iteration of your product wasn't the product the market needed, the big market needed, and the market was then emerging. And then you had to, in a way, redesign or build a new product.
Absolutely right. Yes.
Let's talk about the organization and leadership, because you said you were 36. That means you were 32 or 33 when you were starting this.
30, yes.
You can
Third, we started, yes.
I gave you an extra couple years. Boy. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're 30 years old, and in your young 30s, as this was all happening, also having to build a team. Did you also have to tell us a little bit about the challenges of building that team without gray hair, first of all, and maybe a lot of experience, and then how did you have to change that team as the product changed as well?
Yes. So I'm an engineer by background. So the easier part for me was the initial part of the company where we built a product. We hired great engineers, and we did some iterations, and we eventually also built a product that some organization liked. But that's only the beginning. From that moment, to some extent, it's a good thing and a bad thing, because once you hit this vague thing called product market fit, now you really need to scale the business and grow the team mostly on the go-to-market aspects. Obviously, we grew engineering and product, but that was easier. That was already a place that we had a lot of confidence in. So building the team had few phases from my perspective. The first phase was the phase where I had very low confidence on my abilities to actually sell the product because I had no experience in sales, and I heard people saying that, you need to know how to sell. It's like it's a profession, etc., etc. That was the first phase when we looked for team members that been there, done that. That's important. That's great, but it does not replace the fact that as a founder, you gotta be out there and sell the product because that's a new market, that's a new product. It's okay to bring people that knows how to sell, but my experience became that those great team members are actually helping to drive sales, but in order to start and have good bonding with customers and excite them about this new product and technology, it's got to be a founder-led sales.
It was more like an evangelical selling by the people with vision with you.
Exactly. So that was the first phase, and until I had this change in my mindset that I can sell and I'm a salesperson, it was very hard for me to enable the team to be successful on the market side.
Omri, can you just one little example, if you can, of what is something that you did differently when you said, okay, now I'm learning how to sell. What do you do differently?
So, first of all, I started to join every call with a prospect, and I started to lead this call. In the beginning, there were times that I played the technical person in the call. I did a demo, etc., etc. After some time, I just did everything in the initial calls until things were stable. I did a discovery with a customer, what the customer wants. I built the decks together with my team, but I took the lead. And that was a change. That was a change for me because it wasn't natural to me at all to be in that position. But after a while, I remember coming and saying to one of my investors that I actually start to like it. And she told me, Omri, we are all salespeople. All the time we're selling. We're selling ourselves. We're selling a product. We're selling. You're the best salesperson the company has. Just go and sell. And yeah.
Okay, good. So it also involves over time building a sales team.
Correct.
Using the sales team, and if you want to scale, then you can't get sales off, right? So was the team that you started with the team that you actually kept going with, or did you have to change some key resources in the team?
Yeah, obviously we had to change some key resources along the way, but we also were fortunate that the management team of Run AI is the same management team from the early days. So we were growing as a team, and each leader at Run AI was able to grow as their domain leader and reinvent their capabilities to what's needed in every phase of the company. It's actually pretty fun to see. I'm a first timer. I have no experience being a CEO. So it's great that together with my professional growth as a CEO, the team is growing and succeeding. And it was beautiful to see that. Of course, we did had some changes in key roles, not necessarily in leadership, sometimes also in leadership, but mainly it was a team that evolved and grew as a team, which made it very successful over time.
Were those changes in personnel, even though there weren't that many, were they difficult?
Yes, they are difficult. They are difficult because it's very hard to know if who are the right people for a company at every point in time, because it's not only the capabilities and the experience, there is other dimensions of a fit that I don't know to put my fingers on, why sometimes it works better than others. But when there are expectations that things would work and they don't, then it's very frustrating for everyone, obviously.
So that's, I think, one of the hardest things for any CEO, especially founders, and that is to say to someone who might be one of 15 or 20 people in a team that you're going to have to part ways. And I'm wondering whether you felt that you handled that as well as you could have. Did you wait too long? Did you do it too soon?
I'm definitely on the waited too long person. I think that I truly wanted to see people continuing growing with us, even when it was when the signs were that it's not the perfect fit. But many times it worked. I mean, it's sometimes it takes more time for that fit to work out. So if I need to say that more generally, I would be the person that waits before doing something, because I want to make sure that this is the right thing and be very rational around it. Sometimes it's too late. Most of the time it's too late. But for the few times that you get from a person that initially wasn't well positioned in the company, you're getting that growth. It's very, it's very hard to say that it's not the right thing to do.
Well, I think about yourself and the co-founders and early executives that you all learned how to be in a completely different company than the one you started.
Exactly. So it's a very hard question, and I'm talking, to many founders all the time, and it's something that is magical when there is when things start to scale. Sometimes it's because of the product, sometimes it's because of the market, but that starts to open up. Sometimes it's the people, and you need to be very, very cautious in taking a decision of changing someone in a key position, and to some extent throwing their responsibility on those personnel. On the other hand, sometimes that's true, and you need to do it. And that balance is very challenging in a world of very limited data points in the start of life.
Yeah. And I imagine there's sort of type 1 errors and type 2 errors. Type 1 being you wait too long and keep the person, and type 2 error meaning you get rid of the person or part ways with the person, and it actually could have worked out, and you actually never know.
You never know. Yeah, you never know, and you automatically lose time. And time is probably the most valuable asset that, for a company or for a startup, together with cash.
Let me ask you just a couple more questions. One is going from, let's say, 1 to 10 million, and now you're going way beyond 10 million. Of course, you're part of a big company, but how is that fundamentally different going from, let's say, 10 to 100, to make up a number? Is that fundamentally different? And in what ways?
I think that, yes, it is fundamentally different, because there is this magic number saying, hey, let's get to $1 million of sales, which proves, that you have product market fit. First of all, I don't believe this is true. I think that KPIs are irrelevant, because different markets behave differently. And specifically, getting to $1 million can be with a very large customer that is your anchor customer, or tons of small customers that doesn't present your target market. Let's say that once you got to this 1, 2, 3, whatever, like the first few millions of dollars of sales, then the problem becomes completely different, because for the first few millions, it's like the CEO, the founders are selling, the every person in the company knows what the company is doing, what's the vision, why are they coming in the morning, and then you're getting to a situation where you need to accelerate growth of the team, and specifically expanding significantly on the go-to-market and letting other people to sell the product. And that becomes a completely different problem, because it's the problem of enabling others versus having the core founding team as the one at the front, being at the back seat and navigating versus being at the front seat, and actually in the field. It's a completely different problem. Whether it's harder or not, I mean, I would claim it's actually harder, in my opinion. I think it's harder because once you got to this product market fit in the few initial millions, now it's really a game of you have to grow very quickly all the time to be that best company in your industry. The room for mistakes is getting smaller and smaller over time. The patience is getting, smaller and smaller over time. And you need to learn much quicker and do changes much, much faster. Therefore, I think it's significantly harder, this second phase.
What about building processes as opposed to doing things yourself? Is that part of the equation?
It is, but here's what I learned. Building processes is obviously mandatory in order to scale. However, building the wrong process can lead you to a very wrong direction, slow down the company.
Give me an example of a wrong process.
Yeah, so a wrong process means, let's take the sales, for example. How do you manage your sales pipeline and decide which opportunities are the right opportunities to go after versus those that are just noise? Okay. Now, if you build a process that brings you too much noise into your system, you don't have that much resources, you're slowing down the system. However, if you're building a process that doesn't bring you enough opportunities, you're slowing down your sales potential. So that type of process is something that is very, very important to nail it, to understand how to build this mechanism, and putting a process too fast sometimes is making you be very slow in your growth. So that was just one example.
Interesting. So two more questions. One is, I'm sure that the listeners are going to be interested in the fact that you raised a lot of money. Do you have any reflections on the well over 100 million, I think, that Run AI raised with no revenues?
Yes. Yes. I think cash is king. You cannot expect what will happen, in the world. When you're building a company, you have so many problems to take care of that I think one problem you don't want to have is thinking about the fact that money is running out. And we had at Run AI, we had an internal, we had a few guidelines that we followed when it came to budget management. One is that we always wanted to have at least 2 years of runway at any point in time. And therefore, we always calculated what could look like the most successful growth of the company. Like how, let's say that we're growing like crazy, how many people we're going to have, et cetera, et cetera. And at any point in time, I wanted to see that I have 2 years to fund that growth. That's why we were open to raising a lot of money, ahead of time. The second thing is that we also, even though we took the cash, we haven't really used it unless we needed. So it was an asset that was well managed. We had what we call flags. Flags meaning I worked with my CFO to define how the growth of the business could look like in different scenarios, and we took in advance the decisions on would we pour more money and accelerate growth versus slow down hiring, slow down, etc., etc. And the reason is that we sometimes when something bad happens and you're not ready for it, then you're taking the decision from not from your head, you're taking it from your stomach. So we tried to write multiple scenarios, good ones and bad ones, and know how to manage our cash in every scenario. We put it in the drawer, and hopefully, we didn't want to use it, but it was there. So I think that for a startup, raising money is extremely important. Obviously, don't be radical and raising like crazy valuations that you can never achieve. That's a wrong thing to do, in my opinion.
The trap.
Yes, but if you can raise money and and continue and focus on building the company, that's the most important thing.
So the last question, Omri, you're 36 and you're meeting your, let's say, 30-year-old self who's starting a new Run AI. Given the 6 years of very accelerated learning that you've gone through, and I'd say personal and professional development, what would be the 2 pieces of advice that you would give to the 30-year-old Omri Geller?
One, it's extremely hard, and it's hard for everyone. One of the things that our industry is, I think, is showing is that it seems that it's always easier to other companies to grow and succeed. And for a first-timer CEO, it can significantly hit the confidence of that new CEO to think that, oh, it's so hard, things are not going very well to me, but all the others are so successful. So it's not like that. It's very hard, and even when it's growing like crazy, you'll hit the next, bump in the road at some point. So that's one thing.
So have appropriate expectations.
Appropriate expectations, and focus on your business, on how to make it better and better, and don't get blinded by success of other companies. That's one thing. The second thing is, and I think this is the most important thing, always assume that you are wrong. I mean, always criticize the decisions that were taken, the direction that the company is going, because the market is moving so quickly. And sometimes we're falling in love with things that worked out in the last, quarter, 2 quarters, year, 2 years. Things are changing all the time. Always look ahead and see if you need to change things, and just change.
That reminds me of something a very successful entrepreneur and investor, Nubar Fayan, called paranoid optimism. And I see that over and over again. So I'm going to thank you very much, Omri Geller, co-founder and CEO now of Run AI, now VP in Nvidia, which acquired Run AI a year ago. And I want to thank you, Omri, and of course, wish you continued success and growth and learning, and also being a role model, I think, for many, many entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much, David. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So remember, Scale Up Podcasts is a series of podcasts to give you all kinds of examples and information, ideas about how you can grow your company.